This is Truth Be Told.
That not only are there reptilians here,
new evidence of UFO fleets.
We were close to nuclear war.
To help you transform so that you can live your highest truth.
We're not being told just because we're not ready for it.
Geostations of frequency, vibrational.
I was a homicide detective with LAPD.
UFOs increase. Visitations. Hello. Bye. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, today we're going to find out. We have the host of Kindred Spirits, co-star of the hit TV series Ghost Hunters. We have the one and only Adam Berry on the show talking about his new book, Goodbye, Hello, Processing Grief and Understanding Death Through the Paranormal. Not only does Adam bring his expertise, but a genuine curiosity that fuels our collective journey into the supernatural. Adam is a dedicated seeker of the paranormal. He spent years unraveling the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding with a keen insight, unwavering determination, and a passion for exploring the uncharted. Yes, he has become a beacon in the world of paranormal investigation. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. We have some fun questions for Adam. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, author, paranormal investigator, and a beacon. Please welcome Adam Berry. Oh, the crowd goes wild.
That intro was fabulous.
Hey, I just off the top of my head, but I love the beacon. I was like, I have to throw that in there because
yeah. Speaking of beacons, I feel like that alien was looking into my soul the whole time during the intro, and I kept being like, "Dude, what is going on with this thing?"
It is gonna give you creepy vibes. You know that
it's wild.
Yeah, I've seen that look through my window a couple times. You know, on a lonely night, I might invite in, but yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. Like I said, we were talking before, like, I can't believe it's taken so long to have you on the show, but I'm so excited to have you here. First, and congratulations on the book. First of all, how did it take you so long to write this book? and
you know, I all the thoughts were there for a number of years, and so it sort of like came out like word vomit, and then I cleaned it up. So it took me about a year to get it all out, but all the theories and the ideas have been sort of festering and cultivating in this noggin brain here.
I love the noggin. I love to call that too. I always ask my guest, because I think it's important for a lot of us in this genre. Many of us thought, oh my God, I must be crazy. And years ago, you couldn't talk about anything paranormal because people did look at you kind of like nutty. Mm-hmm. But I've had my experiences as seeing a ghost when I was a kid and UFO experience with my family. That's what kind of really instilled in me. And it took a while to fester until I finally started doing podcasts about it years later. What was your story on the paranormal? There has to be one. Has to be.
Oh, yeah. I wrote about it in the book, so everyone can get the long version for sure. The simplest truncated version is I grew up in a time when we had the best pop culture ghost things to support our curiosities, whether it was Ghostbusters or Stephen King books, right, novels, movies. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Scary stories to tell in the dark. 13 Alabama Ghost and Jeffrey. Just like these countless things that I would be obsessed over as a kid. And then I also had experiences in my own house growing up. So taking the two of those, taking the experiences and then taking the fascination with what could be out there based on, pop culture references that I knew, it became a hobby, right? It became a hobby that I was intrigued by, interested in. I started reading books about, Hans Holzer books and books that weren't just fiction, right? Material on the afterlife. And I obsessed over that one book, and I can't remember the name of it. I think I talk about it in my book, but with pictures of ghosts. It's like ghost photography. Oh. And I would sit in the library in my town, and I would just like stare at these ghost photos, just like, whoa, right? And so it became a hobby, which I enjoyed, and I met my now husband, Ben, and he had some of the same similar interests. We love Halloween. We love scary things. It was our way of sort of bonding when we first got together, where we just enjoyed the same kind of things. I started my own paranormal team, and I say team very loosely. It was Ben and I and our two friends, and we lived in Provincetown in the winter on the Cape. And so it was back when people could house sit for the winter. Like that doesn't happen anymore, but like these beautiful old Cape Cod homes. And we would go and hang out with our friends who were in these houses, and we'd investigate them. We'd look for ghosts.
Oh, that's cool.
And the hobby became a career. And I think I'm so lucky and blessed that happened. Anyone who has a hobby, whether it's, I don't know, people who golf, they're like, God, yeah, I wish I could just do this all the time. Well, some people do. And I think, you get lucky to do that kind of thing. So, in a nutshell, that's the simplest version. It is I can't even speak. And I wrote a book. It is much more well written and thought out in the chapter form.
Better on paper than in verbal, right? Well, many of us had, hobbies. I mean, but where was that transition? Because I don't want to give anything away in the book, but when was that transition of becoming more of a professional job? What I mean, did it start off like you said, a team? Was it drunken paranormal investigation, or was this actually serious stuff?
We were trying to be as serious as we possibly could, right? Because I even early on, I had this weird fascination with, well, if it's real and it's true, then I want a true, real, powerful experience. I don't want it to be hindered by, any kind of foolishness. So what happened was we were doing this like as a hobby in the off season, and I was sitting with Ben one October, and we're watching Ghost Hunters, and I saw a commercial that said, "Do you think you have what it takes to be a ghost hunter?" And I was like, "Yes, I do."
You're like a ring-a-dingy.
Ring-a-ding. And so I went to the internet cafe. And I filled out all of the forms. Like I went online to the website, and it was for a show called Ghost Hunters Academy. And I sent in my picture. I told them about my Gettysburg battlefield experience that really was the catalyst for me. That experience in Gettysburg threw me off the cliff. It was like, I can't believe I'm experiencing this. I have to know more. And I was obsessed with it. So I talked about that. I went through a few interview processes, and I eventually got to be on Ghost Hunters Academy, which was a reality show where they took 8 cadets to the scariest places in the country, and they would teach the TAPS methodology that you would see on Ghost Hunters. But then they would also allow you to do your own thing and bring your own ideas to the table. And then each week, like Survivor, they would kick someone off the island. And I won the show. I won. And my prize was to be on Ghost Hunters. My partner in crime, Amy Bruni, that's where I met her. And I didn't know this, but I was only supposed to get like 6 episodes. Like they capped it. But Amy and I worked so well together, and I got along with everybody so well that the network saw that chemistry and saw that camaraderie, and they were like, he's here. And so I didn't leave. I was on for, 3.5, almost 4 years, on the road all the time, working and investigating, which was a blessing because I could investigate in 1 year what it would take someone 10 years to do.
Right.
Because we were constantly filming almost 50 cases in a year.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, which is insane. So you're talking about lifetimes of investigation and experience packed into such a small amount of time. And to get like a little coin for doing it is
that doesn't hurt.
Great. It doesn't hurt. I mean, when I say little coin, I mean like little coin, but
a coffee and a cookie.
A coffee and a cardboard cup and a cookie. And so but I couldn't complain because I was doing something that I found fascinating, and I was hanging out with people that I admired, and and that sort of grew to this crazy nut job you see in front of you right now.
While you take a sip, there's many people. I've known a lot of people after doing paranormal podcast and being in this arena for a while. You know, there's a lot of people that are taking to the internet, TikToks and all these, doing their own paranormal shows, which I encourage. I think it's great. It's great to bring in a younger generation, which you're one of those. You know, I'm quite a bit older than you. But
I'm like,
well,
I'm like,
yeah. Why do you think I'm blown out? You know,
I'm gonna
put some tape.
Okay. Get my threads out and be like, got it.
Right. But going from kind of I would say, not mediocre, but, you know, doing this on a fun level with your friends, moving to kind of a professional settings must be great. But also when you add Hollywood to it, sometimes it takes the magic away from it.
I know what you're saying.
How was that transition from, you know, going into these spaces with your friends, then having cameras and producers and you know, networks telling you what to do and where to go? How do you make that transition, and how do you not? It's like going from college to professional.
Oh yeah,
football.
I totally get what you're saying. First off, nobody puts baby in a corner. Okay, first off and foremost, I think we were very lucky because on Ghost Hunters we controlled everything, right?
Oh, wow.
Jay and Grant watched every episode. We never compromised. You know, I personally never compromised, and I can vouch for Amy and, you know, those like Steve and Dave, and I mean, I can vouch for them. I mean, in from what I saw and from what we were doing together as a group, we didn't have to compromise what we wanted to do because the network wanted something else, right? And it was a struggle at times. Like I mean, Jay and Grant were in charge, and I know some of the conversations that they had with the network when they went back and forth about things they didn't want to do and didn't think was appropriate, and they fought for that, right? And that took a lot of guts, basically. But what have you got to lose? I mean, really. So
right.
So I think we were very lucky in the sense that we could control our own destiny, and then with Kindred Spirits, Amy and I are executive producers, so we're the same thing. We control everything. We see
That's
everything.
Great.
We work on the edits with the editors. We work with the network on the edit. Like everything, we have our hand in every pot. But I know what you're talking about. It's like you start eating at your favorite restaurant, and then you start working at your favorite restaurant, and you're like, that's the kitchen, right? Yeah. You're like, and there are jobs that I have not taken when I was growing up that I'd be like, I don't want to work here because I don't want to ruin what I have here. Like, I don't want to work at my favorite bar.
Right, like, right. You don't want to see people drop food on the floor and put it back on the plate. Yeah.
or I just want it to be my space. So I think, in a sense, we were in control of everything that we did. And for me, I grew up doing musical theater. I went to school at the Boston Conservatory. Like, I've been on stage since I was 6 years old. I can talk to a camera. So for me, I enjoyed the idea that I got to share my experience through a lens.
Right.
Because I was able to work on my, communication skills, my personality, the explanation, and we would forget the cameras were there most of the time. I mean, and there weren't that many. Like, maybe there was one camera operator or two, and that's it. And they're in the room with you. And that's the only people that are in the room with you. And so you sort of forget that they're there because they're quiet.
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And they know what we're doing. Like, especially on Kindred and on Ghost Hunters, like, they were part of what we were doing. Even though they weren't looking for ghosts, they would react. If a sound person, usually they would sit in a hallway because their sound equipment can reach further than, whatever. So they would just sit in a chair really quietly. And if they ever moved or knocked something over, they'd be like, sorry, that was me. Right.
Right.
They copped up to it. Like, they were part of it because they knew how important it was to us. So yes, after, doing it for about 4 years, what got to us was the travel. We were on the road 300 days out of the year. We missed a lot of our family's things, my husband's birthday.
Wow.
Special occasions. There's things that we just didn't have any control
Yeah.
over. Like, we had to work, we had to be there. We weren't in charge that much, specifically Amy and I. And so I think by the end, we were like, I am ready to do something else. Like, Amy had her kid, Charlotte, and I was working on a new project with a nonprofit theater company in Provincetown with Ben. And there was just, we were tired. We were so tired. And so we chose to leave. We left Ghost Hunters, and we really didn't have another, we didn't immediately be like, oh, I want my own TV show. I think we spent a year and a half having people knock on our door and be like, well, you're not on Ghost Hunters anymore. What do you want to do? What are you doing? And we kept avoiding it. And finally, our manager was like, just write something down on paper. Just write something down on paper. And I know people out there listening are like, what? They had to twist your arm? Look, they didn't have to twist my arm, but we had to have a moment of just, what is life without it? And what do we want from it if it happens again? And what we wanted from it was Kindred Spirits. So what we wrote down on paper that we presented to, at the time, was Destination America. It was exactly what you see on television. It is A to B, C to D, E, F, G.
Which is amazing, by the way. Yeah.
It's it. And so we pitched, the pitch was supposed to be 15 minutes. They kept us an hour. And what's awesome is those people in that room, now a lot has changed in the network world, right? So they've gone on to other things, but those three people, one of whom are still with us, still part of our, two of those people ended up running Travel Channel at one point, right? And so our transition from Destination America to TLC to Travel Channel through merger, through Travel Channel to Discovery Plus, like, we were all still with the three people that were sitting in that room that we pitched to, which is amazing, very rare and unheard of.
I was going to say very unheard of in Hollywood. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I agree that, the magic, as in, it's more fun to me to go out, obviously, and investigate with my friends without a camera crew than it is to, I guess, investigate with a camera crew, right? Because there's a sense of mystery and intrigue when you're alone, like completely alone, which you can sort of get with a crew. So in that way, I could see how the sausage was being made, and it changed it a little bit. But we had a lot to hold on to make it our own, and to make it something that we really were interested in continuing to do.
Love it. Love it. And I did get a fun question from an audience member that they wanted to ask this question: if you could investigate any location, fictional or real, from a movie or a book, where would it be and why?
Oh my God. That's actually the first thing that comes to mind is legit Haunting of Hill House or Bly Manor.
Oh,
those two TV shows that I'm obsessed with that director. I'm obsessed with his writing. I'm obsessed with the way that they filmed that show. I'm obsessed. Like, I'm not going to say Midnight Mass, because unless you're going to turn me into a vampire and I can live for eternity, like, don't touch me.
I wish they would have done it 20 years ago, though. I would have been younger.
Right. I mean, the Haunting of the Bly Manor and the Haunting of Hill House, those fictional locations, I would love to investigate if they were real, because I'm just obsessed with the environment and the storytelling. Even the Midnight Club that he did, that show broke me into thousands of pieces. I was so moved by that show. Like, even investigating that place, I think, would have been awesome. A real location that I have not done that I'd love to go to would be like, Amy always says Graceland.
Oh, that would be a good one.
We could find the ghost of Elvis, and then he'd prove that he's actually dead. But at this point, he'd probably be dead anyway. Maybe Haunted Mansion in Disney World could be kind of great. The White House we always talk about, because people, many presidents and first ladies have said they've seen the ghost of Lincoln or things. I would love, not that the activity is so-so, but like Alcatraz, I missed out on because I was filming
that would have been a perfect one. Yeah. That Winchester Mystery House, I'd love to at least visit. Things on the West Coast. There's a lot of things on the West Coast that I never get to, and I think at some point I will
spend some time out there and try to see some spooky things on the West Coast.
I love. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot out here, by the way.
Yeah.
So, what's one of your weirdest or most unexpected things has happened to you during an investigation on a television show, and then maybe before you went to the pros?
Okay. Yeah. On TV, I mean, there are tons. I mean, anytime we went to Waverly Hills, the knocking with the nurses, the full body apparition that we saw in Kindred Waverly Hills, the spirit of the woman Nancy, who talks about we were doing the Estes method, listening to the spirit box, and she says something like, I have final words. The world is wide. Love is strong. Like I miss my life before I was in the ground. I miss my birds. Like literally having conversations with ghosts and spirits, which was the catalyst really for this book. It's like, what do they tell us about the afterlife and their experience to help us better understand our own mortality, and what might happen. But in off camera, there's a story that I talk about. Actually, I don't even think it's in the book.
Ooh.
It might be in the next book.
A sampler for the next book.
A sampler, but it's. I was at the Mount Washington Hotel, and I was leading a group in one of the tower suites. They have this round octagonal tower that used to be staff housing, and now it's storage, and now you can't go up there at all if this was before the Omni took over. And so we were allowed up there to investigate, and I was leading a group of people, and I said, okay, go off and investigate, and I'll come around and I'll check in with each of you, because I can't, it's an octagon, right? The hallway. Right. And as they dissipate, there's this woman standing in front of me, and she has black bangs, black hair. She's wearing a gray sweatshirt, red sweatpants. She has white sneakers on, and she's holding a Diet Coke bottle in her hand, and she's just looking at me like this. And I was like, can I help you? And she goes, oh, no, I want to stay with you.
Oh.
And I said, well, did you hear what I said about the rules? No. And I said, oh, okay, well, you can go off and investigate, and I'm going to come around and check in on each of you. But if you go up these stairs, there's a skylight, so be careful, because you don't want to trip and fall. You could become a ghost. Oh, that'd be okay. And she's looking at me, not to a point where I felt like this is, I just getting really uncomfortable, right? Like she's staring at me, but I'm now taking in more of her appearance, and her sneakers are white, but they seem like, like she's had them for a while, even though they look in good condition. They don't seem like current. The bottle that she's holding, the Diet Coke bottle, the label seemed weird, and it was like dirty. And then there was about maybe an inch and a half of liquid in it, with like a cigarette butt, like where people would spit tobacco, maybe. Yeah. And I'm looking at her, and I was like, well, you can go off. And she's like, oh no, oh. And she's staring at me, and she sort of like leans in a little bit. And I say, hold on a second. And I turn my back to the first room that's right directly behind me, where two people are investigating, because I hear them like talking. And I turned around and I said, how are you guys doing? And they're like, we're good. And then I was like, okay, great. And then I was like, oh, this woman doesn't have a lanyard. Because at these hotels, sometimes drunk people and wedding parties they try to crash our event because they don't believe. They're just like, I want to know. And I was like, oh, she's not wearing a lanyard. So I turn around to be like, hey, where's your lanyard?
And she's gone. And
the only place for her to go is either around the octagon, right? Or down the set of stairs. And if she goes down the stairs, the double doors are very loud. And I did not hear those. And she wasn't going down the stairs. So I start making my way around the octagon, looking for this woman in all of these rooms. And I get around and I don't see her. I call everybody back to gather around me. I completely stop the investigation. I have them all stand together. I look at each and every, she's not amongst the group. I go back to every single room. I look under mattresses. I open closet doors. I'm thinking this woman is trying to pull one over.
Right.
Like she's not supposed to be here. And so I'm looking. I come back and I don't find her. And I was like, did you see her? She was standing with you. Nobody saw her. Nobody heard me talking to her. And then I was like, this is so weird. So I told everybody who could listen the whole weekend, staff members,
Right.
people.
They're probably like,
I was
sure.
like, just please tell me. About a month and a half later, I was at Fort Ticonderoga for an event. And this is when the hotel would send a person from the hotel to these events to like set up a table and talk about coming to the hotel and investigating. And
Right.
And I see him making a beeline. I don't know who he is at first, but this guy's like making a beeline to my table as I'm setting up. And he was like, Adam, like halfway there. He's like, Adam. And I was like, oh, here comes a fan. And he
Get my pencil ready.
He's like, gets to my table and I have my Sharpie out, And he gets to my table and he goes, we saw her. And I was like, what? What? Who? We saw her, the woman with the red sweatpants. We've seen her. And I was like, oh, what? He goes, yeah, we've seen her a couple of times. It's always sort of late at night. And the security guard would see her like down a hallway. And she turns down a hallway where like no one's rooms are and there's nowhere for her to go. And they turn the corner to be like, hi, what are you doing up here? And she's gone. Like she's gone. But to me, that was incredible because here I am talking to this person who for 100%, she was as real as you and I. And to the point where I was like, oh no, this is crazy. I'm not letting this person pull one over on me. To now being like, oh my God, it could have been a ghost, a full body apparition that I had a conversation with, to, oh, other people are seeing her.
Right.
And it isn't just someone like from town wandering in from the snow. And we're talking about the dead of winter here.
Did they ever figure out who this girl was?
They haven't. I have a theory. So Ben and I always talk about this story as we're driving up to Mount Washington. We go every November for Strange Escapes and we bring up the story. And one time he was on his phone and he shows me this picture and she goes, did you look like her? And there's this picture of this lady in the early 1900s. And she's not really done up, but she's gorgeous. She doesn't have much makeup on.
Right.
And I was like, maybe like an aunt or like a cousin, or they look like they could be familiar. And he was like, that's the princess. So the hotel was built by Joseph Stickney for his wife, Carolyn, the princess. And because she was a princess.
Of course
you got to be a princess. And they say that she haunts the princess room, right? Which
and she likes
made
Coke.
Contact with her. And so my theory is that I was leading a group in a space that nobody ever goes. And I had been there. It's my second night. The easiest way for an entity to get information is to ask directly. If she had shown or manifested herself in Victorian garb, I would have been like, holy shit, goes.
Right. That what I was going to say. The sweatpants kind of threw me, but
weird.
Yeah.
And so she would have gotten no information.
Yeah.
But the idea that she somehow was able to present herself in a way that was off, but not too far off.
Right.
Like it seemed that the label seemed older, the shoes seemed older, just seemed off, but not so far where I'm going to ignore her or be scared of her. And she got information. What are you doing? No, I'm going to stay here with you. Oh, that'd be okay. Like, oh no, like, no, I'm going to be here. Right. That's my personal theory. And, I always am, believe it or not, I always say, I hope she shows up so that I can have another conversation with her. And maybe we could take a selfie so that everyone would believe it. But yeah, that's probably one of the craziest
that is pretty crazy
stories I've ever had.
That is pretty crazy. I've had an experience when I was a kid seeing an old man in the house I grew up in, and we figured the house that was built by the local banker. So we have figured that it was probably him who built it, and because my great aunt owned it before my father bought it. I think he bought it in like early 70s. So yeah, it was. But again, I didn't really talk to him. I just saw him, and of course, scared the hell out of me. But it sounded like she was just, curious, a curious Nancy, and
well. And I talk about it. I talk about it in the book, but I'm like, of course she is. Of course, it makes sense to me because there are reasons for spirits to stay behind, and one of them is unfinished business, right?
Yeah.
But then one of them that we see a lot is like keeping watch over the empire that they created. It's almost like they are still, in a way, making sure that things are being ran
Right.
and done as if they were still in charge, even though they're not. And so it makes sense to me that if she could do that, if she could get this information and manifest herself in that way, then why not, right? Like she has a reason for being there, clearly, if she's still around anyway. And maybe that reason is to make sure that nobody is where they're not supposed to be. And so she's like, well, why are you up here? What are you doing?
Yeah.
I want to stay with you. It's fascinating.
And
It's
she
so
probably liked
fascinating.
you, and so she didn't feel threatened.
Why not?
Right.
Why
Right.
not?
Yeah.
I wasn't like up there being weird.
Yeah.
And I was in charge. I mean, nobody else saw her, which is strange. And what's crazy is I have pictures of some of the groups during, like, this was probably 12 years ago. I have pictures of some of the groups up there with me. So I have pictures of the space. I just don't have any photographs of her. And when I tell this story during my Real Ghost Stories lecture, I've had people that have come up to me and they're like, "Oh, we were there. We were a part of that group that you called back in, and I remember you frantically being like, I don't know where this woman is," but none of us had seen, like, we didn't see her. And so
That's pretty cool.
I have witnesses. I have receipts, Diane.
That's right.
I have
That's right.
Receipts.
All right. Well, Goodbye Hello, which I think is a great title. It's processing grief and understanding death through the paranormal, which I think is an amazing take. Normally it's hello, goodbye. So what was the idea of the title, but in bringing supernatural with kind of more of a psychological side of it together. I mean, that's pretty. Because you don't hear that too often.
Yeah. So if you look at the dedication, the second dedication of the book is to my husband, and I say he's a phrase maker. I call him a phrase maker, which is from my favorite Edward Albee play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And Ben is really good at coming up with titles. So he came up with Kindred Spirits, the title. And originally the manuscript for this book was called Dealing with Death, a guide to the afterlife or something. And as I was writing and working on it, I was like, I don't like the title. Dealing with Death. Dealing sounds so negative. Like you have to deal with something. And I was like, and it's not a guide. It's not like it's not the Beetlejuice book, you know. It's and I don't want to tell someone how to grieve. I want to like give them ideas and thoughts and have them make their own decisions. And so one day, I think Ben came up to me and he had a piece of paper and it said goodbye, hello. And he was like a Ouija board, you know, where you like say goodbye, but you're also saying hello because they don't die. Immediately I think 12 hours went by and I was like mulling it over and I was like, no, I like it. And then I immediately emailed my publisher and was like, we're changing the name of the book. It's going to be Goodbye, Hello. And we need a tagline. So that tagline, the processing, which is the longest thing in the world, processing grief and understanding death through the paranormal. That took about 2 weeks to figure out what we're going to do, what we're going to say. It went through so many different versions because I wanted to avoid like the word afterlife. Right. I wanted to avoid the word guide. I wanted to make sure that people like had the word grief in it because we do talk about grief. We talk about how we can better process our own grief through the ideas that we believe in the paranormal. And then we are talking about how we understand what we know about the afterlife from the ghost perspective and from our investigation. So I think the title fits. And I love that I can just say goodbye, hello. And people are always like, the Beatles song? No one ever said this, but I always think the Beatles song. He came up with the title, you know. I think we'll keep him around.
Right. No, hey, you don't give him a little
very smart
pat on the back and say, all right, go fix me dinner.
Phrase maker. Yeah, he's a phrase maker. You know?
I love that. No, some people are great with words. But what was your reasoning for combining the two? Were you dealing with your own grief because you said the spirit perspective? So how did you approach that? Because every spirit is different, or do you feel every spirit is similar, just a different take?
So if you've noticed, like Kindred Spirits specifically, Amy and I are in the business of helping people better understand the hauntings
Right.
through research, investigation, and finding out who is there and why they might be there. And if there's anything we can do to help them in their current state to continue their own journey, right? We're not going to banish them or cast them out. I don't believe you can do that. You can't cross them over. But what you can do is you can listen, and you can provide information, and you can tell their story, and you can find out what they're pissed off about, and maybe you can fix it, right? So our business is to help both the living and the dead. And so in a sense, I wanted to write something that does just that. It helps people like, well, ghosts can't read. You don't know that. No, people, like, in the sense it helps spirits, because I want people who are living to understand our methodology, and I want them to hear about our investigations, and I want you to hear what they are saying, so that you might not be as afraid if something goes bump in the night, right? Or if you end up having a ghost or encountering a spirit, you'll know that that's just a person. That's a mother, a father, a sister, a brother. That's someone that's like us, who is now currently on a different plane, right? Treat them just like that. So that in turn is going to help spirits, I think, whoever they are. But then on the flip side, I wanted it to help people better understand their own grief. So I've lost, family members in the past, and I talk about in the book, like, none of them have ever shown up like at the foot of my bed, like a Charles Dickens novel.
Right.
Like, that's just, they haven't, right? And you would think they would, because I have a direct line of communication. It's like, no, you could talk to me, like, whatever. But I've had loss and grief, and processing, like, why maybe they haven't shown up for me.
Right.
I hear a lot of people say, well, my mother passed away, and if ghosts were real, she'd come back and see me. And I think the biggest takeaway is, like, maybe she didn't need to. Maybe she doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Maybe she visited somebody else. Maybe her journey to get where she needed to go sadly doesn't involve you, because you're okay.
Right.
But I'm not okay. I'm sad. Right. But there might have been someone that's even more sad that you don't even know about. Or there's something that she needed to do in her current state that doesn't involve you, and you can't take it personally, because everyone's death journey is very, very different. And so I wanted to explore that. I wanted to put it on paper. I wanted to talk about, even pets. Like, we lost our 17-and-a-half-year-old Chihuahua Maria last October 30th.
Oh my God! Wow.
We were in Salem at the Hawthorne Hotel. We had just gone to the Salem Hawthorne Ball the day before, and she had been sick, right? And she was on medication, but just something took a turn on that day, and she was like, "I'm out." She was. We called her our little witch, and we were in Witch City, and so it was very appropriate.
Right.
But I thought my heart was going to literally fall out, explode. I had never felt anything like that in my entire life, and to me, and something happened during that experience. We were at the vet's office that we had to drive to, half an hour, unfamiliar space for her, which was so sad. But something happened during that experience that was very paranormal, that gives me comfort. That's like, oh, no, that gives me a little comfort, And so I wanted to share those stories, my personal stories, my dream visitation from my grandmother. But I also wanted to talk to other people who know more than me, because obviously everything that we do is theory, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm a psychologist.
Right.
So I sat down with a psychologist, someone who does grief counseling, and I said, what is it that people talk to you about when it comes to ghosts? Or I sat down with a theologist who's into ghosts, who interprets the Bible from the Hebrew text to talk about, what does the Bible actually say about ghosts,
Right.
And I talked to people who had near-death experiences and experienced, the death of a loved one on a hospital bed and what they go through. And I think all of these stories are powerful. And even though it is scary to talk about, it is inevitable. And I think the more that we kind of dissect what it is and what it means through a perspective that I enjoy,
Right.
I think it's going to help people. And if you don't believe in ghosts, you're still going to get something from the book. There's really great stories. There are stories of perseverance and loss and hope, and just there's beautiful, beautiful things, in the book. So you don't have to believe in ghosts to like it. There was, so real quick, I'll just say that at the beginning, in the intro, I talk about, this happened 13 years ago, and I was doing a panel for ghost hunters at the Otisaga Hotel in Cooperstown, New York. And people ask the same questions. What's your scariest place? How do you deal with the crew? Like all of these really great questions we always get. And it was my first time like being on a panel. And it was finished, and this woman comes up to me and she goes, I have a question for you. And I'm thinking, yeah, great. Right. And she says, I have been given probably a couple weeks to live. Oh. And I would like to know how I can communicate with my family once I go to the other side.
Wow. That's pretty deep. And I look at her and I'm like shocked, because it's the first time I'm actually putting it into perspective what we do, like, and what we're actually talking about when we talk about a ghost. And I say to her, you know, I'm to a point where I'm like going to get emotional. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. And it didn't faze her. She didn't get sad. She was in this peace. And she was like, that's okay. I just wanted to ask just in case there was something I'm missing. And I said, I wish I knew more. Wow.
And then I said, if you find out, will you come back and let me know? And she said, of course. And you know, I've not heard from her. Obviously, I mean, I've not seen her. I remember what she looks like 100%. Right. But you know, I hope she found whatever piece that was. But that moment was one of those moments where it's sort of like it was cataloged in my brain, and it keeps coming up every once in a while. And I was like, that is something I can talk about. I think there are other people out there that are having those same kind of thoughts.
And that wasn't a question you were, like you said, thinking of. Like that was probably a shocker in a way to hear that. You weren't expecting that.
Oh, no, 100%. Like, I'm expecting her to be like, what's Crafty like, you know, or what's the funniest thing Steve has ever done, a practical joke, you know? And she's like, no, how can I communicate with my family? I'm going to not be here in 2 weeks.
Dang.
I mean, it's powerful.
That is powerful.
So,
that is powerful.
And I think those that are out there that look for ghosts and look for the unexplained really need to understand what it is we're doing here. Like, you're sitting in the dark with a recorder, and the person on the other end of that conversation is in a place that is not made for them. Like, the world is made for the living. We can touch, feel, see, taste. And I can't imagine what they're going through and how hard it must be. And so it's in our best interest to be as kind and compassionate and understanding as we possibly can. Because if it were my grandmother, if it were whoever, or yourself, like, you'd want that same sort of compassion.
You know, when my mother passed away about 5 years ago, actually a little over 5 years ago, and her and I, we talked every day, you know, and I, for years, my mom was ill, and I always prayed, please don't take my mom, please don't take my mom, please don't take my mom. But there was something about right before she passed away that a peace came over her that really changed my mind on the afterlife. I mean, I knew it's there. I wasn't necessarily scared of it, but you know, you don't want your loved one to die. About 2 weeks before she passed away, and she says, you know, I'm ready. I said, oh, what, you ready for a cake? Are you ready to, well, I mean, what are you ready for? You know, she goes, no, I think I'm ready to go. And she said, and by the way, my mother came to visit me the other night. And I was like, and she never met her real mother. And I said, now, was it Grandma Rose or your Grandma Neva? Neva was her real mother. She just never knew her. She said, Neva. And I said, did she say anything? And she said, no, she just came into my room. And I said, oh, well, she must be coming to, saying, she's there for you and when it's your time. And she said, yeah, I'm ready. And then within those 2 weeks, she went quickly. But we always said, we're going to show signs and da-da-da-da. But I think, and you may agree with me on this, we as humans, still in our physical body, we're looking for a very specific sign. A vision of them in our dream, or a vision of them next to our bed telling us everything's going to be fine. But there's so many, we're going at it like this, but there's so many signs around us through numbers, through animals, through people that could, your mother or loved ones can come to you as.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when people are like, well, how will I know?
You don't. Sometimes you don't.
How will I know? You know? And I was like, if you recognize it, you'll know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that's specific, that is for you only.
Yeah.
And it could come out of nowhere. Like you might be sitting somewhere and you're not even thinking about them at all whatsoever. And then something happens or you see something and immediately your mind goes to them. I'm like, what's to say that's not them intervening or trying to get your attention? People finding dimes with specific dates.
Always.
Like I talk about the day last year, actually last September, went to the funeral of a friend of mine, and I'm walking through Provincetown and I look up and I'm like, oh, the building, he used to work in that building. And as soon as I notice the building, this monarch butterfly out of nowhere comes around the corner of the building, flies right down to me, stands in front of my face. And I'm like, at first I'm like, this is weird. And then I stick my finger out and it just hovers at my finger. And then I immediately was like, Casey.
Wow.
Immediately.
Yeah.
I was like, that's Casey. And then as soon as I said that, and whether or not it was him or not, it doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't matter.
For me, I was like, Casey. And as soon as I said that, it was like, cool. And it flew back where the building was around the corner and was gone. And, you know, obviously, as someone who thinks theoretically, like, I'm not going to say it was 100%. My friend's too fierce to be a butterfly, but maybe not. I don't think maybe it wasn't him, but the idea that it could be gave me like just a moment of like, huh, okay, cool. Right. And he's come back in different ways. Especially with the theater company, because he used to work with us at the theater company. And
oh, that's cool. Yeah.
He did a lot of stuff this summer when we were producing our show that were very, very strange. And I was like, oh no, that's him. That's for him, sure. But yeah, it could be as simple as that. And I think if you look too hard for the signs, you'll miss them. So the idea is to just continue your own journey with them in mind and let it just happen naturally. It's the same thing for paranormal investigation. People are so focused and they want something to happen so bad that they miss it off to their left. And so it's meditating, keeping a wide open mind and idea, and being aware of your surroundings and not neglecting those that are still here with you on this earth, right? Like living every day to the fullest. I know it sounds crazy, but like, and simple, but that's what they say. It's like just being in the mindset and being in the moment always, and then letting things happen naturally.
And sometimes they leave so you can make room for others. And well, before we get out of here, I have to ask 2 more questions. And so I always said authors are like therapists. A lot of times therapists get into their therapy, become psychologists or psychiatrists because they're trying to heal themselves, or they don't even find out really who they are until they start talking to people with either more issues than them or issues that are similar to them. Writing this book, what helped you maybe close a grief or deal with grief, or, you know, find something else about yourself that you didn't know?
So yeah, this book was very much an exploration for myself as well, right? Because again, not telling people how to do anything. It's, here are the ideas, here are the things that I know, here are some other ideas from experts and people that know more than I do. Let's couple them together. And so I think one of the biggest things that affected me in the book is the religion chapter. So I grew up Southern Baptist. I grew up in Muscle Shoals, Alabama is where I grew up in. And so I went to church all the time. I mean, I was in church in a bassinet, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Hallelujah. Yes.
Go to Sunday school, and then you go to big kids church, you know, the big church. And I fell out a little bit with that because obviously I'm gay, and I grew up in the 90s, especially in the 90s, when boycotting Disney, and it just seemed every sermon was about gay people. And I was like, God, oh my God, like, this is weird to me. Right. And so since then, I've been able to take what I liked about certain things in different religions and the paranormal and sort of create my own conglomerate of spirituality. I'm spiritual, right?
Right.
But the thing is, more often than not, sliding into the DMs are people that are like, what you do is against God. You are speaking to demons all the time.
Been there.
Right. And they come out of the woodworks at the oddest times. But their biggest argument is like, ghosts aren't real. They're not in the Bible. And fun fact.
I'm like, have you read the Bible?
Yeah, fun fact, they are. And so when I talked to this guy named Matt Arnold, who dissects the scripture, whether you believe it or not, he dissects it from the Hebrew text as it was written for the people of that time period, because that's how you have to read it. You can't read King James Version because that's been manipulated and changed and created for that time period, right? You've got to go to the source. And there are multiple times in the Bible where Jesus could have said ghosts aren't real, but he never does that. Specific example is when he walks on water. Everybody knows the story. And the disciples are in the boat and they're like pointing at him. In the Hebrew translation, they're saying, he's a ghost. He's a ghost. Look at him. He's a ghost. And Jesus turns to them and says, he says, I'm a divine being. Ghosts don't walk on water. So he doesn't say ghosts aren't real. He just says they don't walk on water, right? And then when he comes back from the tomb, the people there are like, you're a ghost. And he was like, no, I am reborn. I am whatever. There are soothsayers and psychics and things that would put Game of Thrones to shame. When you're talking about kings, reading things in fire and going to see psychics and so whatever. Anyway, that whole conversation I had with him, and if anybody's out there, please look him up. He has a magazine online. He's from the UK. He's brilliant. That put myself at ease because there were times, and especially when writing this book, where panic attacks in the middle of the night where you're like thinking of that thing you did when you were 4 years old. There's like, what if I got it wrong? What if I am getting it wrong? What if I am getting it wrong? And that would creep in every once in a while, and I would sort of push it aside and put it away. But now I know that I'm not getting it wrong, especially from the text that would be the thing that would tell me that I'm doing it wrong. From that weird, guilty Southern Baptist growing up perspective, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So for me, that chapter really helped me process what I've been doing for the better part of 15, 20 years. And lets me know that I'm good. I'm okay, right? It's okay to explore the weird and the unknown because we've been talking about it for longer than 2,000 years.
I was going to say, yeah. In human beings, we're like cats. Our curiosity sometimes kills us, but we definitely are constantly looking and seeking, and that's where truth be told came from, because I'm a Sagittarius. I just celebrated my birthday on December 7th.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Secret truth. It's all about the truth, and we constantly seek. So yeah. And listen, I interviewed Eric Van Deniken several times, and he even said, Chariots of the Gods. He goes, there were quotes in there that now that I've had 50 some years, 60 years of, research, there are some things that I say, I got it wrong, but back then because I didn't know the full extent of what the subject was, but now I know, and I can elaborate even more on that. So
yeah. And like I said, this book is how I feel now. Yeah. After all these years, right?
20 years from now, you never know.
In 10 years from now, there may be some addendums and some changes made, but we're all in the moment and on this crazy spinning rock, the same. So.
Right. All right. Let's end on a fun one. This is another one that somebody wrote in. If you were a ghost, where would you haunt, and what kind of ghostly mischief would you get yourself into?
Oh, God. Okay, well, this is all hypothetical because I talk about in the book where I think I asked my friend, and I love this. I said, well, if you could come back as a ghost, would you? And she goes, I don't want to make that decision right now, because what if what I say right now affects...
Right.
I don't feel the same way in 30 years or whatever. Yeah. So hypothetically, very hard question. Okay, first off, traveling, hitchhiking ghosts. Like I
that'd be
want to
fun.
be able to go. I want to be able to do and go wherever I want to go. I don't want to be stuck in a mansion.
Right. Same
but
old.
If I am stuck in a mansion, great. As long as it's a mansion and it's like historic and not going to be torn down ever. I think I would probably. I think that's it. Hypothetically, I'd like to be able to travel, and I would probably haunt a few theaters every once in a while, and then get bored and go like, haunt a classy hotel or a gay bar. I don't know. I'd like the variety. Just give me the variety.
Right.
Give me variety. Let me be everything everywhere, an amalgamation of all of it, and then I can just float around and cause mischief if I want to. Halloween night would be
off
fun. The chain. They'd be off the chain. I would make people shit their pants all day and night. That's just all.
I would steal underwear. No, I'm just kidding.
That's hilarious. Or like break into like, I don't know, go sit in like the secret rooms of the White House and see what they're actually saying, and then go over to somebody else who's doing an EVP, and they'd be like, "I'll tell you what they said over there,"
right?
And then they're not going to know.
Right.
They're not going to know anything.
Be Mrs. Kravitz of the ghost world, gossip.
Right. Travel to the future, meet some aliens.
See that. Now you're talking my game right there. All right. Well, we're out of here. Christmas just happened, and I would think, we always talk about how Halloween is, the most time of year for spirits. I don't think there's really more than others, but I think around Christmas time, loved ones think about their loved ones more than any other time. Do you have any Christmas hauntings that you've ever experienced or heard of?
No, I might lose you. I might lose my power cord. My power cord.
We have about 2 minutes left, so hopefully.
Okay, so I am in the Christmas spirit, as you see.
Right.
I think Christmas is a time where we talk about ghosts more often because you're talking about times when, right? You're talking about things that happened a long time ago, where they're ghosts, memories of ghosts. I think Charles Dickens really got it right when during A Christmas Carol. Like everything about that to me is exactly what I think of when I think of ghosts and Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really had an experience where I've seen a ghost, like Christmas ghost or at Christmas time, but I want everyone to take this in. There are times when during the holidays where something will happen, where there's a smell, a sense memory, something will happen and it'll immediately transport you back into a memory or a time. And you get to feel that magic again. I think that to me is very paranormal. It's very supernatural because it is, it's one of those things where, he's bringing me my cord now. It's one of those things where it happens to a lot of people. It's undeniable. It's very strange, but it sort of transports you for a brief moment in time.
Right.
And you get to be a kid again, right? It's the magic of Christmas. I think that's all paranormal. And Santa is real, by the way. I mean, Santa is real, especially if you're thinking of like, an egregore or a tulpa. If you have so many people believing in him, and I believe in Santa, he's real. He's going to fly around. He better bring me $1 million at Christmas.
Just $1 million? Okay.
Okay, look, fine.
In California, that won't get you far anymore.
Listen, let's do 2.5 million.
There you go.
We'll put it in a secret high-yielding interest bank account and live off the interest.
Perfect. It's a deal. Adam, thank you so much. And please tell everybody where to go, not to hell, but just where to go to get your book and all the upcoming 2024 schedule.
Yes. So lots is happening in 2024. If you want to come investigate with me and my friends, you can go to strangeescapes.travel. You can go to adamberryevents.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Adam Berry, Twitter or X, Adam J. Berry. I'm on TikTok, The Adam Berry. Just Google Adam Berry and pick the paranormal investigator and not the guy who writes music for South Park or the baseball player, and you'll be fine. And then my book, Goodbye Hello, is available wherever books are sold. You can get it same-day shipping or one-day shipping on Amazon. And then the Audible, of course, I narrate the audiobook, and it is a treat because I do impressions of my friends and Chip Coffee, and I just thought, Chip Coffee drops the F-bomb. He's the only person that drops an F-bomb in the book, and he's just like, I just want to go over here, and I didn't do it that harsh, but I get to like do my friends' voices and them speaking, and I get to go off script a little bit for the book, and so the book is the narrated portion of the book is so much fun, and it was hard to do, so please get that too.
Well, thank you. You are amazing. Thank you for finally being on Truth Be Told and being a guest and sharing your stories and your amazing book.
Yeah. The next time I come back, let's talk about aliens because I live in 02666.
What?
That's in Truro, which is like tons of alien abductions. We go out to the abandoned Air Force Base and watch stars go in circles, which is bizarre. And I also we collect the art of Bud Hopkins. I'm sure you know who that is.
I do.
Bud Hopkins, Budd. I have, long story short, we have like 28 of his pieces in our house.
What?
And I have his original copies of his book given to me by his wife, Joan, who was with him when he missed time in Provincetown, and I talked to her about it, and she gave me his books. So we can talk all about aliens.
Okay. It is a deal. You will be back, and if I'm ever out in that area, you're going to take me to the abandoned airfield. That would be awesome. Well, if you're ever in town, please come in studio. We'd love to have you in studio. And then hopefully in the Parapod, the next, if not the next one, the one after, please come and hopefully you'll speak because you won the
let's do it.
Parapod Award for the best psychic television show. So by the audience vote. So
Paranormal television show.
Paranormal. Is that what I said? Yeah.
No, you said psychic.
Yeah, but paranormal, yes.
Close. We are going to win next time.
I have a feeling. So, Adam, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you for being a part of Truth Be Told. You guys are amazing. I can't believe 2024 is here. We have some great guests coming up. Whitney Strieber. We have, tons of different people. You can go to theclubparanormal.com and see who's coming up. And some great shows coming up for the Minuteman Report on Monday with Robert Hensley. Wednesday with Bonnie Burkard with Truth Be Told Transformation. Of course, me every Friday right here on this channel. Subscribe, leave a comment, share the show. Keep us going strong. Until next time, I'm Tony Sweet. Bye. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows.